Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
Good morning, O'Connor and Company here this Wednesday in your nation's capital. Coming up at 6:35, Cal Thomas will join us. 7:05, Jonathan Fahey, former director of ICE. 7:35, Congressman Rob Whitman of Virginia. And at 8:05, Maryland Senator Justin Rady. It's Larry O'Connor with Cassie Smedile. Sorry. Guess what I was just looking at on social media. Sorry. Candace Owens continues her jihad against Erica Kirk, and so I just saw some of it pass by before me. We might get to that later in the show, or actual news might actually be more important for our conversation. Sorry, Cassie Smedile. Good to see you, Cassie.
Thank you, Larry. Of all the people you could compare me to, that's not one I'm going to request, but good to be with you.
Here's the latest out of Iran, where yesterday there was another major explosion in the middle of Tehran, but this explosion had extra significance because, you see, the successor of the Ayatollah was being voted on. The Supreme Council had gathered all in one room. What are they thinking? Have they not gotten the message yet?
That was my thought, too. I thought, at what point do we do this over Zoom? Do we stop all meeting together in one spot? I think it's clear the meetings calendar has been leaked.
The Supreme Council gets together. They're going to select the new Supreme Leader. By the way, what was that? It's like the opposite of an American political campaign. No, I don't want it. You want it. You be Supreme Leader. You're better than me. Go ahead. I don't want it. I'm not going to sit in that chair. No. Nothing supreme about me.
First time in history, they all have their humility. Oh, I couldn't possibly.
I guess it's sort of like when the College of Cardinals select the new Pope. I guess that's what they're doing, except, well, we did not have a plume of white smoke, Cassie.
Well, that and certainly not a piece. It wasn't just from a nice little fireplace. The smoke we saw was a little more invasive than that.
It was a plume of very dark black smoke. Here's Trey Yingst of Fox News reporting on what happened.
Scene of one of these cluster munition impacts just outside of Tel Aviv, but I'm told by a senior Israeli official that the Israelis just struck the Supreme Council gathering where the Iranians were meeting to choose a new supreme leader. This is a significant development and, again, speaks to the Israeli intelligence about this war. They just targeted the meeting in Tehran where what's left of the leadership was gathering to choose a new supreme leader.
I'm glad Israel's on our side. Because they're just really good at this.
Yes. I love Trey's line. Again, they just targeted the meeting. It's not the area, not the building.
Just the meeting.
The meeting.
Yeah. Wow. Not a lot left of that building where the meeting was coming up. There's 88 members of the Assembly of Experts, although I don't know how many of them are there now. But apparently it said that they named Khamenei's son, Mojtaba Khamenei, 56 years old, to be the new supreme leader. That's according to the Iranian news service, and I use the word news advisedly. My guess is if that's the person they named, he will be now target number one as this goes forward. I think the only acceptable – I know we claim that we're not in this for regime change, but I don't see any acceptable resolution where there is anything like a theocratic dictator in place as the supreme leader deciding if women can have hair coming out of a scarf on their forehead. That's just, I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I don't think the bombing or the targeting of these meetings stops without that outcome.
Meanwhile, there was still a little bit of a domino effect here yesterday after Secretary Rubio briefed reporters and briefed members of Congress about the military strikes, where he had said, and we played this audio yesterday, that, listen, Israel gave us a heads up. They were going to do this strike. They knew that everybody was gathering. And we knew that after Israel did that strike, we would be prime target for retaliation. We decided to join the military strike and take out their capabilities to retaliate against us. And again, I see nothing wrong with that. That makes perfect sense to me in terms of why the decision was made at that moment. But for some reason, that was twisted into, so Israel pushed us into it. We weren't going to do it, but we're just, we're the dog wagging the tail or the tail wagging the dog, or I don't know what more euphemisms you can use. So Manu Raju. Well, here's the other thing. It's like we keep getting different messages from the administration about the reasons why we did this. There's many reasons why we did this. It's not just one. So, yes, Hegseth might say it's because of this. Rubio might say because of that. Trump might say it's because of that. And they're all right because there were a lot of reasons to oppose the Iranian regime. But here's Secretary Rubio as Manu Raju tries to sort of bully him and say, hey, what did you just say about Israel? Take a listen to Marco Rubio here.
Let me just clarify what you said. I want to clarify what you said because you said clarify. Well, but you said I would. No, but you have to read. If you're going to read the whole thing. But your quote is about we knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that would precipitate an attack.
Yeah, I understand. But listen, forces. All right, but let me understand. That's what. But I had a very specific question from that gentleman, right?
The president said. What the president said.
Hold on 1 second. I asked the very. Okay, but let me answer because this is my press conference. Sure. Okay. You asked me. I was asked a very specific question, so you guys can misrepresent it, but I was asked a very specific question yesterday. The bottom line is this. The president determined we were not going to get hit first. It's that simple, guys. We are not going to put Americans' troops in harm's way. If you tell the president of the United States that if we don't go first, we're going to have more people killed and more people injured, the president's going to go first. That's what he did. That's what the president will always do. He will always put the safety and security of our men and women in uniform and of all Americans before anything else. He's always going to do that, and that's what he did here. In addition to that, I would argue that this threat from Iran, they are hiding behind these missiles and hiding behind these drones. They wanted to reach a point where you couldn't touch them, and then they could do whatever the hell they wanted with their nuclear program. And there was no way in the world that this terroristic regime was going to get nuclear weapons, not under Donald Trump's watch.
So all right, and that's pretty clear, and Trump's always been saying that. That was yesterday with Manu Raju. The day before, when this all came up, I thought he had solved this, Marco Rubio, because the reporter said, hold on, are you saying that we only struck Iran because Israel was striking Iran and we only did it? And he said at the moment here on Monday, listen.
First, well, let me two things I would say. Number one is, no matter what, ultimately this operation needed to happen. That's the question of why now. But this operation needed to happen. Right.
So, in other words, the operation was going to happen. We had assembled our military. We had 2 carrier groups in there. We were poised and ready. The whole issue of Israel going forward with their strike against leadership, that's the answer to the question, why did you do it now? Why was today the day that you did it? There's 2 different questions. Why did you strike Iran is one question. Why did you do it on February 28th? The answer to that question is the timing of Israel's strike. And I don't see why these are controversial in any way.
Well, because they have to create controversy. That's what the press thinks their job is to do. But I think that's a really good distinction because there was no secret that we were building up our force, that President Trump was working both sides with both angles, with the diplomacy angle, but also not being afraid to use military might if need be. So it's not like Israel took an action and then all of a sudden we scurried to put something together.
Right.
This was long thought out.
Thank you.
But I do think, by the way, it's important that the administration continues to inform the public where appropriate. I'm glad Secretary Rubio is one of the main messengers of that. He knows not having, Manu Raju is like the thorn in the side of anyone who walks through the halls of Congress. He's just always needling at something, and he just handles it so well. But
I think Rubio, you could hear Rubio handling him pretty well there.
Yes, we get good clarity, and that's important too.
Well, the commander-in-chief, the president, actually had some words about this, and he was specifically asked yesterday while he was in the Oval Office with a foreign dignitary, did Israel force America's hand? Okay, the president answered that question. You'll hear it in a moment. First, though, it's 6:15. As promised, yesterday the president was asked by a reporter in the Oval Office, did Israel force our hand? Okay, here's the answer.
Mr. President, did Israel force your hand to launch these strikes against Iran? Did Netanyahu pull the United States into this war?
No, I might have forced their hand. You see, we were having negotiations with these lunatics, and it was my opinion that they were going to attack first. They were going to attack. If we didn't do it, they were going to attack first. I felt strongly about that. And we have great negotiators, great people that do this very successfully and have done it all their lives very successful. And based on the way the negotiation was going, I think they were going to attack first.
All right. So there's Trump saying, if anything, I forced Israel's hand because we were face to face with these guys. We saw the lunatics. We saw that it wasn't moving anywhere, and we were starting to get the sense that they were going to attack first. And by the way, now we've got some reporting. A lot of people are saying he just gave the State of the Union. He barely mentioned Iran. Why didn't he tell us he was going to? I just love everybody complaining that Trump and Rubio and Hegseth didn't tell the world 5 days before a military strike that we were going to engage in a military strike. Why isn't I'm left speechless at the stupidity of that argument.
How dare they? That, Larry, Trump could have put it on a Times Square billboard and the Democrats would have said he didn't give them enough warning. So there's no appeasing these people.
Right.
It was going to be Trump bad no matter what. So I'm glad there's, holding strong, not giving any inch of wiggle room to these guys because, like I said, they'd do it. They'd be, dismayed regardless.
Just stop trying to get military secrets and military plans before we execute a battle. There's a reason why you call it a surprise attack, you idiots. And there's nothing unconstitutional about keeping our military plans secret. That said, we're getting some interesting reporting about the discussions regarding Iran leading up to the State of the Union. Mark Caputo, a pretty well-sourced reporter in Washington, D.C., grading on a curve, reporting for Axios. An initial CIA check conducted at Trump's direction confirmed the information about Khamenei gathered by Israeli military intelligence. Preparations accelerated as Trump told Netanyahu he would consider moving forward, but first came the president's State of the Union address the following night. U.S. officials said Trump made a deliberate decision not to focus excessively on Iran so as not to spook the Ayatollah and drive him underground before the strike could be executed. Thank you.
What a thought. What a concept. In fact, it's as though President Trump was very thoughtful about this and that his cabinet went into this eyes wide open. But again, the Democrat, he could have put it on a billboard and they still would have said it wasn't enough notice. The
president was also asked, obviously, about where things are going, how it's going, how long we're going to be engaged. And a good question, actually, from whoever this reporter was. What's the worst case scenario right now? Because you got to think a commander-in-chief, a CEO like Donald Trump is when deciding major decisions like this. And as the, 72 hours post-strike, I think you want to call your experts in and say, okay, tell me what the worst case scenario is. What's the worst that can happen at this moment? So he was asked that by a reporter. Here's his answer.
Well, I don't know if there's a worst case. We have them very much beaten militarily from the military standpoint. They're still lobbing some missiles. At some point, they won't even be able to do that because we're hitting all of their carriers. We're hitting all of their missile stock. They built up all these missiles over the last few years. They had a lot of them. They've shot a lot of them, and we're knocking out a lot. I guess the worst case would be we do this, and then somebody takes over who's as bad as the previous person, right? That could happen. We don't want that to happen.
All right. So to that end, he was asked about Crown Prince Pahlavi. This is the son of the Shah, who has been living in exile right here in our backyard, by the way, in Northern Virginia since the late 70s. He was specifically asked about whether he could be a unifying force and possibly the person who sort of steps in on a transition to usher in the new free government of Iran. Here was his answer.
Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, is he an option at all in your mind?
I guess he is. Some people like him, and we haven't been thinking about too much about that. It would seem to me that somebody from within maybe would be more appropriate. I've said that. He looks like a very nice person, but it would seem to me that somebody that's there, that's currently popular, if there's such a person. But we have people like that. We have people that were more moderate.
So they're sort of obviously looking at people on the ground, Cassie.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think this goes to President Trump's point of he wants the Iranian people to take up the cause and really does want to give them the opportunity to have a democracy if they choose it.
Yeah.
And so he's not going to say, yeah, we're going to do all this and we're going to tell them who they have to put in next.
Right.
Let's see.
Especially if that person is a monarch, Right. But I do I don't know why, but I like considering the long history, and also I like the poetic justice, sort of the closing of the loop on having the crown prince come back in some way to signal to the people of that country and the world that, okay, we're going to try to restore Iran to in some semblance where it was before this blight on our history for the last nearly 5 decades. And maybe there is a role for a constitutional monarch that is similar to the King of Iran or the King of England, the King of Denmark, where you've got the ceremonial head of state position, but then you have a functioning democratically elected government actually legislating and running things. I don't know. That maybe that's
interesting idea.
A way to go.
A win if he could just go back to Iran, just set foot on Iran. I think that in and of itself would be a big
also renaming it.
Step.
Let's make it Persia again too. That would be amazing.
Yeah, it's
Come
just
on,
prettier.
we got all these Persian cats around. I mean, it's like they at least deserve to have
Aladdin
a homeland.
Was placed in Persia.
No, he was in Agrabah. It's
Also.
pretend. It doesn't exist. Neither does the genie. You know that wasn't a documentary, right?
Oh, sad. Right. Don't tell that to my kids.
We'll talk later. It's 6:24.
Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It is 6:37 on this day after a big primary day in American politics. We're unpacking the results from Texas. Haven't even touched on North Carolina yet, although there's not a whole lot of news coming out of the other states. But we'll get to it as the morning develops. And, of course, the aftermath of the military strike on Iran and other things affecting our news. Coming up at 7:05, Jonathan Fahey, former ICE director, will join us, talk about Kristi Noem on Capitol Hill yesterday and Abigail Spanberger's plan to allow illegal immigrant criminals to roam free in the Commonwealth. 7:35, Rob Whitman, congressman from Virginia, and at 8:05, Maryland Senator Justin Reedy. I'm Larry O'Connor, and that there is Cassie Smedile joining us all morning long. Good morning, Cassie.
Good morning, Larry. Wasn't sure which name you were going to call me this hour, but
thank you
glad
for
to be
that.
with you.
Let's just let it go. See, we're doing as many Disney princess references as we can because I know that you're in the middle of it. Ooh, speaking of Disney princesses, he was the singing voice of Briar Rose, of course. Everyone knows her as Sleeping Beauty. Cal Thomas. A lot of people don't know about your incredibly powerful falsetto and that you basically do voiceover work for women. In fact, you were the singing voice for Audrey Hepburn in My Fair Lady, weren't you?
You know, Larry, we've got pink and we've got falsetto. What are you trying to say?
I'm just trying to open us up to a wider audience here on O'Connor and Company, Cal.
Yeah, well, I did like her gown as she came down the stairs. That was a great scene.
There you go. Definitely.
Where do we begin? Your column.
Well, let's begin with the. Yeah. Well, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say your column focuses on Iran. I mean, listen. Much of your literary and analysis career here in Washington D.C. as a shoe leather journalist was covering the threat from Iran. So I'd love for you to sort of reflect on how Iran has been a thorn in America's side and the West side for so long, and whether you support the president's decision.
Yeah, well, you would take a look now at for the Democrats want to vote on this War Powers Act from 1973 in the middle of the Vietnam War to constrain the president's actions in Iran to take out in a preemptive strike an evil empire, to resurrect Ronald Reagan's phrase, that means to eliminate Israel and come after us. They say it openly, and they've rebuilt after Midnight Hammer, that operation last year that took out a lot of their capabilities, and they would do it again if the War Powers Act passed. I just think the Democrats are so infected with Trump derangement syndrome that they can't even support a war that is legitimate. I mean, these guys, if there are any left, and there may be, would rebuild again. They've done it before, and they'll do it again. I mean, how would you like Congress running a war when they can't even run themselves?
It's a good point. I know we were saying that had Trump put this on a billboard in Times Square, the Democrats still would have found a reason to say he didn't give him enough notice. But I was reading your column here, and someone else smarter than me has made this point, but isn't this President Trump ultimately ending the longest forever war? Is that how you view what's happening here too?
Right. There's only two ways to end a war. One is by surrender. The other was by victory. And, or if you want a third one, stalemate, which we've had in too many instances. And that doesn't solve anything. I think Trump wants to win. And I think by winning, Israel will win. The entire Middle East will win. You've seen some of the reaction of the Gulf states now that have been hit. U.S. bases on their territory, they've been hit, and they're no longer defending Iran, and they're lining up against them. I think that's a very good thing. It's in their interest, too, to eliminate this terror threat. You've seen thousands of people killed, innocent people. And by the way, where are all the student demonstrations on the college campuses? They came out for Gaza, which was totally different, and it was underwritten by the Soros clan. And you haven't heard a peep from the left on all the innocent civilians that have been killed in Iran.
Great point.
Double standards. Yep.
Cal's column this week is Trump fulfills his promise. He did what no other U.S. president would do. They may not say it out loud ever, but Mr. President Trump's successors will have a much easier job of it on the world map when they do their job every day in the Oval Office, because Iran is no longer a threat, assuming that that is the end result here, that Iran will no longer be a threat.
Yeah, well, we hope it is. I mean, anything short of that, I think, would be a failure, especially if they rebuild. But, I remember something Reagan said years ago about why he hadn't met with Soviet leaders. He said, they keep dying on me. So I don't know if there's going to be anybody left in Iran after that. I love the attack yesterday where the successors were voting on the successor, and they got wiped out before the vote was in.
Incredible. So, Cal, one of the parlor games here inside the Beltway is what's next, or who's next for that matter. As the military strikes start to diminish and the power structure there is weakened, if not debilitated, there needs to be something emerge from the ashes in Iran. What would you think it should look like?
Well, the problem is that the opposition, all those people who have gone into the streets risking their lives, some of them killed, thousands of them, are not armed. They don't have any weapons. Meanwhile, the IRG has all the weapons, and they've been using them against their own people. We've got to find a way. Just destroying all of the potential leadership doesn't do the job. We've got to find a way to arm and empower the opposition. Now, the Shah's son, of course, is supposedly the leading candidate to be the new leader, but he's got to have the kind of support that will quell the religious fanatics. I mean, I just love what Marco Rubio said yesterday about this religious fanaticism. A lot of people don't bring that up. These people claim that their God wants all infidels dead, starting with Israel, even starting with fellow Muslims who don't believe what they believe, and then come after the United States. And those ICBMs they've developed, if they go any further, they could hit the east coast of the U.S. How would Democrats feel about that?
Hey, Cal, lost in the shuffle here, and I'd love to sort of draw on your institutional knowledge, is all of the smart set, the intellectuals, the Ivy League types, the Georgetown locals there who dwell in Foggy Bottom, who for decades now have been, we're looking at their op-eds at the time in the late 70s, where they were celebrating the Ayatollah, where they said, oh, this is going to be peace in our time, this is going to be a great revolution, this Islamic revolution. And it's like being wrong about something so drastic and so deadly means never having to say you're sorry if you're on the left, if you're one of these, so-called experts who were so wrong about Iran and have been wrong for decades.
They've been wrong about a lot of things. Remember Paul Krugman of the New York Times, the economist, who said if Trump was elected the first time, the economy would collapse, the Wall Street, all people's retirement would be wiped out. Just the opposite happened. Did he ever write a column saying I was wrong? Of course not. He went on to the next error. And that's what they all do. And they cover for each other. They don't hold each other accountable for making mistakes and wrong predictions. And that's why the low information voters just don't get some of this stuff.
And they're the same people who now cable news and broadcast news will bring on as an expert to analyze and criticize what Trump has done here. It's like, why? Well, they keep getting to play that expert card. How many times do you have to be wrong until you lose membership in that club, Cal?
Yeah, it's sort of like the word moderate. They've tossed that around a lot, too, and they never define what that means.
Yes.
Well, I'm going back to my falsetto lessons, if you don't
All
mind.
right, you do that, and thank you for teeing up our next segment, because coming up, we're going to take a look at the latest from the moderate governor, Abigail Spanberger, who is anything but. Thank you, Cal. It's 6:45. Yesterday, Kristi Noem, the Secretary of Homeland Security, was participating in a Senate hearing as the key witness on our current immigration and deportation policies, and there were some fireworks, actually, with Senator Tom Tillis, who way angrier at Kristi Noem than he ever was with Alejandro Mayorkas, who created this mess under 4 years of Joe Biden. That's weird from Senator Tillis. Disappointing, to say the least. We'll try to get to that audio a little later, but I do like this moment. Senator Eric Schmidt of Missouri, who specifically brought up the policies of Abigail Spanberger during the hearing. Take a listen.
The sanctuary status that many of these jurisdictions, there's about 11 that matter the most in this country. But what is that about? What does that really mean? It means that the local leaders will not tell ICE when rapists and murderers and criminals are released from prison so they can be deported. Think about that. Think about that. That's what's happening. And by the way, it's happening in Northern Virginia. The new governor just today said that this brutal killer, Abdul Jallo, an illegal immigrant from Sierra Leone with more than 30 prior arrests, who brutally stabbed to death Stephanie Minter, a mother and American citizen, less than 50 miles from here. She will not work with ICE. If for some reason this monster gets released, she will not let ICE know when he's being released.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Think about that, indeed. That's your governor, Abigail Spanberger, the moderate Cassie Smedile. She's making national news now with these policies.
May I just say, I am a Missouri girl, and I wish I could claim Senator Eric Schmidt still as my senator. He's wonderful, but yes, no, you're right. I'm in Abigail Spanberger's Commonwealth now. And the idea that there would even be a debate over that alleged murderer seeing the light of day again, let alone her giving DHS a heads up if he's going to be released. Both of those things are on the table, by the way. They are not sure that she will keep him locked up.
Oh, she said, unless there's a judicial warrant, which would absolutely upend the way ICE does its job and is able to do their job. In fact, we'll get you the details of that, because at 7:05, Jonathan Fahey, former acting director of ICE, will join us. I'm going to ask him, why is that unreasonable? It sounds so reasonable. Just get a judicial warrant. He'll explain the difference. Then at 7:35, Rob Whitman, congressman from Virginia. That's all coming up. Right now, it is 6:53.